Hello friend, and welcome. Tonight, we begin with a creature that many people think they already understand. Dolphins are familiar in a way that few wild animals are. They appear in stories, documentaries, and memories from boat rides near the coast. Many people picture them as graceful, intelligent, and strangely cheerful. But the more closely you look at dolphins, the more unusual they become. Beneath the smooth shape and calm movements, there is a life that is far stranger than it first appears. One of the most surprising things scientists have found is that some dolphins seem to have something close to names for each other. Bottlenose dolphins produce special whistles, known as signature whistles. Each whistle is slightly different, and it helps identify a specific individual. In simple terms, it is a bit like hearing a familiar voice and knowing exactly who it belongs to. Even more remarkable, other dolphins can copy that whistle to call for that specific dolphin. So in the dark water, where faces are not always visible and bodies may be spread out across a wide area, sound can act almost like identity. It is a quiet and strange idea to begin with. Somewhere beneath the surface, one dolphin may be calling to another in a way that is not random at all, but personal. Another fact is just as unusual. Dolphins sleep with only half of their brain at a time. For humans, sleep usually means letting go completely, drifting into deep rest, and trusting the body to keep going on its own. Dolphins cannot do that in the same way. They are mammals, which means they breathe air, not water. They must rise to the surface to take each breath. Because of that, a dolphin cannot fully switch off. One half of the brain can rest while the other half remains alert enough to control breathing and stay aware of the surroundings. Sometimes one eye stays open while the other closes. It is a form of sleep that sounds almost impossible at first, yet it suits a life spent in open water. Even rest for a dolphin must remain partly awake. Then there is the fact that a dolphin can recognize itself in a mirror. That may sound simple, but in the animal world, it is rare. Many animals react to a mirror as though they are seeing another creature. Some ignore it, but self-recognition suggests something different. It suggests that the animal understands, at least to some degree, that the image belongs to itself. This does not make dolphins magical, and it does not make them human. But it does hint at a level of awareness that makes people pause. When a dolphin approaches a reflective surface and seems to understand what it is looking at, it reminds us that intelligence in nature can take many forms. Some of them very quiet and hard to measure. There is another ability that feels even stranger. Dolphins do not only make sounds, they can also use sound to gather information about the world around them. This is called echolocation. A dolphin sends out clicks, and those clicks move through the water and bounce back from objects. The returning echoes can tell the dolphin about distance, shape, movement, and texture. In dark or cloudy water, where vision is limited, this ability becomes extremely useful. To us, it sounds almost unreal, because humans do not experience the world this way. We rely heavily on sight. Dolphins live in a world where sound can do much of the work that sight does for us. In a sense, their surroundings are not only seen, they are also heard. And then there is one more fact that opens the door to an even deeper mystery. some dolphins pass down behaviors like traditions. In certain places, young dolphins do not simply grow up and behave exactly like every other dolphin everywhere else. Instead, they learn local habits from older dolphins around them. In one famous example, some bottlenose dolphins carry marine sponges on their rostrums while foraging along the seafloor. The sponge appears to protect them as they search through rough areas for prey. Young dolphins can learn this behavior from their mothers. That means a way of living can be passed along socially, not only through instinct. It suggests that dolphin life is shaped not just by biology, but by learning, place, and time. So before we go any further, it helps to pause and take in what we already have. We have an animal that may call others by unique sound patterns. An animal that sleeps half awake. An animal that can recognize itself. An animal that reads the world through echoes. An animal that may inherit local traditions from the dolphins around it. And all of this belongs not to some distant science fiction creature, but to a mammal moving quietly through the sea. The deeper we go, the more dolphins begin to feel like beings that live between worlds. They live in water, but breathe air. They seem familiar, yet their senses are very different from our own. They move with ease through an environment that would challenge us in every possible way. And that is what makes them such a fascinating place to begin. Because once you hear a few facts like these, the next question becomes impossible to ignore. What exactly is a dolphin? By now, dolphins may already feel more mysterious than they did a few minutes ago. They can call to one another with unique whistles, rest with only half the brain asleep, and gather information from sound in a way that seems almost unreal. But before we go any further, it helps to begin with the most basic question of all. What exactly is a dolphin? At first glance, the answer may seem obvious. A dolphin is an animal that lives in the ocean, swims with a fin and a tail, and spends its whole life in the water. Because of that, many people loosely picture dolphins as being something like fish, only smarter or more social. But that idea misses one of the most important things about them. A dolphin is not a fish. A dolphin is a mammal. That single fact changes everything. Like other mammals, dolphins breathe air with lungs. They do not pull oxygen from the water through gills the way fish do. No matter how comfortably a dolphin moves through the sea, it still depends on the air above the surface. Again and again, throughout its life, it has to rise to breathe. Even a newborn calf, only moments after birth, must be guided upward for that first breath. This need for air is one of the clearest signs that dolphins belong to a very different kind of animal group than fish. Dolphins are also warm-blooded. That means they maintain a stable internal body temperature rather than matching the temperature of the water around them. The ocean may cool or warm from place to place, from season to season, or from the surface to deeper layers. But a dolphin's body works to stay within a narrow range. This is another mammal trait, and it matters because it shapes how dolphins use energy, how they stay active, and how their bodies are built for insulation. Like mammals on land, dolphins also give birth to live young rather than laying eggs. A dolphin calf develops inside its mother's body before birth, and after it is born, it drinks milk from the mother. This is such a familiar mammal pattern to us that it can almost sound ordinary. But when you pause and picture it in the open sea, it becomes much more striking. Here is a fully aquatic animal, gliding through salt water with the shape of something ancient and streamlined, yet still following the same broad mammal pattern of live birth, nursing, warmth, and breath. In other words, a dolphin is not a fish that happens to be clever. It is a mammal that returned to the water long ago and reshaped itself for life there. That is part of why dolphins can feel so strange. Their bodies are built for the sea, but their basic biology still carries the deep structure of mammal life. The word dolphin can also be a little misleading because it sounds more narrow than it really is. Many people hear the word and picture one familiar animal, the common bottlenose dolphin, with its curved mouth, grey body, and smooth rise through the water. But dolphin is a much wider category than that. There are many species of dolphins living in different parts of the world, with different sizes, colours, habitats, and behaviours. Some live near coasts. Some spend their lives far offshore. Some are small and delicate looking. Others are large and powerful. Even orcas, which many people think of only as killer whales, are actually the largest members of the dolphin family. So when we say dolphin, we are not talking about one single animal repeated around the globe. We are talking about a whole branch of toothed whales with many forms and ways of living. This is also a good place to gently separate dolphins from porpoises because the two are often confused. They can look similar from a distance. Both are small cetaceans, both breathe air, and both have streamlined bodies for life in water. But porpoises are not simply another kind of dolphin in the casual sense people often imagine. They belong to a different family. In general, porpoises tend to have shorter, more rounded faces, spade-shaped teeth, and stockier bodies. Many dolphins have longer beaks and more cone-shaped teeth. Once you know the difference, the two groups begin to feel more distinct. Still, dolphins and porpoises also share something important. Both remind us that the sea is full of mammals that do not fit the usual picture people carry in their minds when they think of mammal life. We often imagine mammals as creatures of forests, grasslands, mountains, or cities. We think of paws, fur, hooves, or hands. Dolphins challenge that image. They show that mammal life can also be smooth-skinned, finned, and fully at home in water, while still depending on lungs, milk, warmth, and social care. That is what makes the dolphin such a fascinating animal to sit with. It looks almost perfectly made for the sea, and in many ways it is. Yet beneath that shape is a body plan that still tells an older story. A story of air, blood, milk, and land ancestry. A story of a mammal life not erased by the ocean, but transformed inside it. And once you understand that, another question naturally begins to rise. If dolphins are mammals, and if they feel so oddly familiar to us, why do humans so often see them as friendly in the first place? There are many animals that humans admire from a distance. We may find them beautiful, powerful, or impressive, but we still feel a clear line between their world and ours. Dolphins are different. For a very long time, people have looked at dolphins and felt something closer than simple admiration. They often seem friendly, playful, curious, or even welcoming. Out on the water, when a dolphin rises beside a boat or glides near the surface, it can feel less like a random sighting and more like a small meeting. That feeling is one of the reasons dolphins have stayed so present in human stories. Part of this comes from the way dolphins move. They do not usually appear stiff, hidden, or difficult to read. Their bodies are smooth and fluid. They rise and fall in a rhythm that feels calm rather than sudden. When they surface, they briefly enter our world of air and light before slipping back beneath the water. That repeated crossing between sea and sky gives them a kind of visibility that many marine animals do not have. We do not just imagine dolphins deep below us. We often see them arrive at the surface, breathe, and vanish again. That pattern makes them feel present in a very direct way. Another reason is the shape of the dolphin itself. Many dolphins seem to wear a permanent smile, though of course, this is not really a smile in the human sense. It is simply the shape of the mouth and face. Still, the human brain is quick to search for emotion in facial features. We are always reading expressions, even when they are not there. So when a dolphin's face appears curved upward, many people instinctively read friendliness into it. The animal may be resting, traveling, or simply existing, yet to human eyes it can look cheerful. This tells us as much about people as it does about dolphins. Humans are natural pattern readers. We look for faces, intentions, moods, and personalities everywhere. When an animal has visible eyes, a smooth face, and movements that seem graceful rather than abrupt, it becomes easy to project familiar feelings onto it. Dolphins invite that more than many other animals do. Their mammal traits also play a role. Dolphins breathe air like we do. They nurse their young. They form social bonds. Mothers stay close to calves. Pods move together in coordinated ways. Even without knowing all the science, people often sense that dolphins live in a way that feels socially rich. We may not understand the details, but we recognize the broad pattern of companionship, caregiving, and shared movement. A schooling fish may be beautiful, but a dolphin pod can feel almost like a community. That resemblance matters. Then there is the long history of dolphins appearing near humans. People on boats have watched dolphins ride the pressure waves near the bow. Swimmers have sometimes seen them nearby in coastal waters. Ancient cultures told stories about dolphins helping sailors, guiding ships, or rescuing people from danger. Whether every story was true mattered less than the feeling beneath it. Again and again, dolphins were imagined not as monsters of the sea, but as beings that might approach rather than avoid. Over time, that image became deeply rooted. But there is an important difference between seeming friendly and being friendly in the human sense. Dolphins are not people in another shape. They are not sea humans waiting to make contact. They are wild animals with their own needs, instincts, and boundaries. Sometimes they approach boats because the water movement is efficient or stimulating. Sometimes they are curious. Sometimes they are simply passing through the same area. Human observers often add emotion and intention to those moments. But the dolphin's own experience may be very different. That is worth remembering, because admiration can easily slide into misunderstanding. The more people love dolphins, the more tempting it becomes to turn them into symbols of kindness, wisdom, or emotional purity. But real animals are always more complicated than symbols. Dolphins can be social, playful, and intelligent without fitting a fantasy. In fact, they become more interesting when we let them remain what they are: highly adapted marine mammals with behaviors that sometimes overlap with our emotional imagination, but do not exist for our comfort. That balance matters for the whole video. It allows us to appreciate why dolphins feel so familiar without pretending they are simple reflections of ourselves. They are close enough to stir recognition, yet different enough to remain mysterious. They breathe air, raise young, travel in groups, and surface into our line of sight. But they do all of this in a world built from salt water, motion, and sound. So the friendliness people feel when they look at dolphins is real in one sense. It is a real human feeling. It comes from anatomy, movement, social behavior, and long cultural memory. But it also reminds us to be careful. The dolphin that seems to smile at us is still living a life that is not ours. And beneath that familiar feeling is something even more remarkable. A body shaped so completely by water that every curve, fin, and movement seems designed for the sea. If you watch a dolphin move through the water, one thing becomes clear almost at once. Very little about its body seems accidental. The shape is so smooth, so balanced, and so efficient that it can feel almost simple at first. But that simplicity is the result of a long process of adaptation. A dolphin's body is not plain. It is refined. Every major feature helps it live in a world where movement through water must be as efficient as possible. The first thing many people notice is the overall outline. A dolphin has a long, streamlined body that narrows gently at both ends. This reduces drag as it travels through the water. Water is much denser than air, so moving through it requires a body that can slip forward with as little resistance as possible. Dolphins do not have the wide limbs, heavy joints, or projecting structures that would slow them down. Their bodies are built around flow. In many species, the front of the head extends into a beak-like shape called a rostrum. This feature varies from species to species. Some dolphins have a very clear, narrow beak, while others have a shorter and less distinct one. The rostrum helps give dolphins their familiar look, but it also holds many of the teeth used to catch prey. Behind it sits the forehead, and this area is more important than it may first appear. In dolphins, the rounded forehead contains structures involved in producing and shaping sound, which becomes especially important when we later talk about echolocation. The flippers sit on either side of the body, near the front. These are not used for forward power in the way a fish might use its fins. Instead, they help with steering, balance, and fine control. A dolphin can tilt, turn, and adjust direction with impressive precision, and the flippers play an important role in that control. Inside those flippers is another quiet reminder of dolphin history. Beneath the outer shape are the bones of ancient mammal limbs, reshaped over time for life in water. On the back, most dolphins have a dorsal fin. This fin helps with stability as the animal swims. It acts a little like a keel, helping keep the body aligned and steady. Not every cetacean has the same dorsal shape, and some species may have very small dorsal fins or none at all. But in many dolphins, it is one of the clearest visual markers. When people spot a dolphin at the surface, it is often the dorsal fin that appears first, cutting cleanly through the water. Then there is the tail. The tail flukes are one of the most important parts of the dolphin body. Unlike fish, which usually move their tails side to side, dolphins move their flukes up and down, This motion is powered by strong muscles along the back and a flexible spine. The flukes provide the main forward thrust, and they do so with remarkable efficiency. A dolphin's movement can look playful or effortless, but the tail is doing powerful and constant work. The skin also deserves attention. Dolphins appear smooth, and that smoothness matters. Their outer surface helps reduce friction in the water. The skin is sensitive and alive, not like a hard shell or armor, and it is constantly interacting with the surrounding sea. In some cases, dolphins also show surprisingly fast healing from surface injuries, which has drawn scientific interest. Even without going too deeply into that, it adds to the impression that the dolphin body is not only efficient, but highly responsive. Under the skin lies blubber, a thick layer of fat that helps with insulation, energy storage, and body shape. Since dolphins are warm-blooded mammals, they need a way to maintain body heat in water, which can pull heat away much faster than air. Blubber helps solve that problem. It keeps the dolphin warm while also contributing to the smooth, rounded outline of the body. Taken together, all of these features create a form that feels calm because it works so well. The dolphin does not need awkward corrections or wasted motion. Its body is built for steady travel, quick turns, deep dives, and repeated returns to the surface. And yet, as complete as that shape seems, it did not begin in the sea. It came from a much older mammal body, one that once moved on land before being slowly transformed by water over millions of years. It can be easy to look at a dolphin and imagine that it has always belonged to the sea. The body seems so perfectly suited to water that it almost feels finished, as though it appeared in its final form from the very beginning. But the history of dolphins tells a much stranger story. Dolphins did not begin as ocean animals. Long before the first dolphin moved through salt water, its ancestors lived on land. This is one of the most fascinating parts of dolphin biology, because it means the body we see today is the result of a very long transformation. Over millions of years, ancient mammals changed bit by bit, generation after generation, until their descendants became fully aquatic. The dolphin is not a fish that happened to grow lungs. It is a mammal that returned to the water and was reshaped by it. That story connects dolphins to the larger group known as cetaceans, which includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises. All of them share a common ancestry. Modern dolphins are part of that wider branch, and their distant ancestors were land mammals related to hoofed animals. That idea can feel surprising at first. When people think of a dolphin, they do not usually think of ancient four-legged mammals walking near shorelines. But that is part of the path. The earlier stages of this transition likely involved animals that still moved on land, but also spent time in the water. Over time, bodies that were better suited for swimming had an advantage in those watery environments. Gradually, the balance shifted. Limbs changed, bodies lengthened, tails became more important. Movement through water mattered more than movement across land. One of the biggest changes involved the limbs. The distant ancestors of dolphins had legs for walking. But as life in water became more central, the front limbs were reshaped into flippers. These flippers still carry the hidden pattern of mammal bones inside them, but on the outside they became broad, stable surfaces for steering and control. The hind limbs, meanwhile, became smaller and eventually disappeared from the outside of the body. Modern dolphins do not walk, and they no longer need large rear limbs pushing against the ground. The tail became the new center of movement. Instead of using legs to support the body, dolphins came to rely on powerful tail flukes for propulsion. The spine also changed in ways that supported this style of swimming. A dolphin moves with strong up and down motion through the tail, unlike most fish, which move side to side. That vertical motion is one of the clues that dolphins come from mammal ancestors rather than fish ancestors. Even the way they swim carries the history of where they came from. The skull changed too. Over time, the head became more suited to life in water. The jaws lengthened in many species, helping with catching prey. The forehead became more specialized, especially in toothed cetaceans like dolphins, which use sound in remarkable ways. But one of the most striking skull changes involved the nostrils. In land mammals, nostrils sit near the front of the face. In dolphins, the breathing opening moved upward over evolutionary time until it became the blowhole on top of the head. This shift makes surfacing much easier. A dolphin does not need to lift the whole face out of the water to breathe. It only needs to break the surface enough for the blowhole to open. Even the ears had to adapt. Sound behaves very differently in water than in air, so the hearing system of cetaceans changed to match an underwater world. Dolphins did not just keep their old land mammal senses and move into the sea. Their bodies were reworked for an entirely new environment. And yet, for all these changes, they never stopped being mammals. They still breathe air. They still nurse their young. They still maintain body heat from within. They still carry the long memory of land in the structure of their bones and the rhythm of their biology. That is part of what makes dolphins so compelling. They feel like creatures of two histories at once. One history belongs to land, breath, and walking ancestors. The other belongs to water, sound, and endless motion through the sea. The dolphin body joins those histories together so smoothly that it can hide the transformation that made it possible. But once you know that story, the dolphin begins to look different. Its flippers are not just fins. Its blowhole is not just a convenient opening. Its tail is not just a tail. Each part is a record of change, a sign of a mammal body gradually rewritten by water. And that ancient mammal history still shapes dolphin life every single day, especially in one quiet and constant act. No matter how well adapted dolphins are to the sea, they still have to rise and breathe. A dolphin lives in water, but every breath still belongs to the air above it. That simple fact shapes nearly everything about dolphin life. No matter how well a dolphin swims, no matter how deeply it dives, and no matter how long it remains below the surface, it can never fully leave the world of air behind. Somewhere above the moving water is the next breath, and the dolphin must keep returning to it again and again for its entire life. This is one of the clearest ways dolphins remind us that they are mammals. Fish can remain underwater because they pull oxygen from the water through gills. Dolphins cannot do that. Inside a dolphin are lungs, not gills. Those lungs must be filled from the air above the sea. This means a dolphin is always living between two worlds. Its body is built for water, but its breathing still depends on the sky. At the top of a dolphin's head sits the blowhole, which is the opening used for breathing. Its position is one of the most useful features in the dolphin body. Because the blowhole is placed on top of the head, a dolphin does not need to lift much of itself out of the water to breathe. It can rise smoothly, break the surface for a brief moment, exhale, inhale, and slip down again with very little interruption. If the nostrils had remained near the front of the face, as they are in many land mammals, breathing at the surface would be far less efficient. Instead, the dolphin's body has been shaped so that breath can happen quickly and cleanly. When a dolphin surfaces, the breath itself is fast. Often, the first thing is the exhale, which can create the visible burst people sometimes call a spout, though in dolphins it is usually much smaller and less dramatic than in large whales. After the exhale comes a quick inhale, and then the blowhole closes again. The opening is surrounded by strong muscles that help seal it shut underwater, keeping water out of the airway. In this way, every breath becomes a brief meeting between the dolphin and the air. This pattern repeats all through the day and night. A dolphin does not breathe in the completely automatic way that humans usually do, especially during sleep. Human breathing continues in the background without much thought. A sleeping person does not need to wake up for each breath. Dolphins are different. Their breathing is active and controlled. They must remain aware enough to surface and breathe on purpose. That does not mean every single breath is a conscious decision in the same way a human chooses to lift a hand. But it does mean breathing cannot simply be abandoned to deep unconsciousness. The dolphin has to remain connected to the act. This gives breathing a different feeling in dolphin life. It is not just a body process hidden in the background. It is part of their rhythm, part of their movement, and part of how they live moment to moment. The timing of those breaths can change depending on what the dolphin is doing. A dolphin that is resting near the surface may breathe at a gentler, slower rhythm. A dolphin traveling steadily with a pod may surface in a smooth, repeating pattern. A dolphin diving more deeply or chasing prey may spend longer below before returning for air. Different species also vary in how often they surface, how long they dive, and how they balance activity with oxygen use. But no matter the species or the situation, the principle remains the same. Life underwater is always being measured against the next return to air. For a calf, this pattern has to be learned almost at once. A newborn dolphin enters the world in water, but it cannot stay underwater indefinitely. Soon after birth, the calf must be guided upward for its first breath. From then on, breathing becomes one of the first great rhythms of life. The calf stays close to the mother, learning when to rise, how to move with her, and how to match the pattern of surfacing. In those early days, breathing is not just survival. It is part of bonding, movement, and following. That image is worth pausing on for a moment. A young dolphin, new to the ocean, rising beside its mother into the light for air, before it understands the wider world of sound, distance, and pod life. It already knows this basic truth. The sea is home, but air is necessary. That is why breathing feels so central when thinking about dolphins. It is one of the clearest reminders that the dolphin body carries an older mammal story inside it. No matter how smooth the skin, how strong the tail, or how natural the movement through water may seem, the dolphin still belongs to a line of animals that breathes above the surface. And because breathing must remain active and controlled, even sleep has to work in a very different way. A dolphin cannot simply drift into deep unconscious sleep the way we do. For humans, sleep usually means letting go. We lie down, close our eyes, and allow the body to keep itself going in the background. Breathing continues, posture softens, and awareness fades. Dolphins cannot sleep in quite that way because their lives place very different demands on them. They live in water, they must keep returning to the surface for air, and they cannot afford to become fully unaware of their surroundings for long stretches. So instead of sleeping all at once, dolphins rest in a way that seems almost impossible from a human point of view. They can let one half of the brain sleep, while the other half remains more alert. This is called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. The name may sound technical, but the basic idea is simple. The brain has two hemispheres, left and right, and in dolphins, one side can enter a sleep state, while the other side stays active enough to help the animal keep swimming, maintain awareness, and continue breathing. Later, the pattern can switch, allowing the other half to rest. In this way, sleep does happen, but not in the same total, all-at-once fashion that most people are used to imagining. This kind of rest makes sense when you picture a dolphin's daily life. A dolphin cannot just sink into complete unconsciousness in the open sea. It still needs to surface for air. It may also need to stay aware of nearby pod members, changing water movement, or possible threats. Even in safer moments, the body has to remain coordinated enough to keep functioning in water. A partial sleep state solves that problem. Rest becomes something more flexible, more divided, and more closely tied to the demands of the environment. Sometimes this difference can even be seen outwardly. One eye may remain open, while the opposite half of the brain stays more awake, while the other eye may close when the opposite hemisphere is resting. This creates a strange image, a dolphin that is resting, but not fully shut off from the world. It is not the kind of deep surrender humans usually associate with sleep. It is a quieter, more guarded version of rest. That half-awake quality fits the sea. Water is a place of movement. Even when it looks calm from above, it is never truly still. Currents shift, light changes, and bodies move through 3 dimensions instead of standing on stable ground. For a marine mammal, sleep has to fit into that moving world. It cannot depend on complete stillness or total release. Instead, rest becomes something woven into motion. Dolphins may rest while swimming slowly, while floating near the surface, or while remaining in gentle contact with the rhythm of the group. Sleep, in their case, is less like stepping out of life for a while, and more like lowering the brightness of one part of the mind, while the rest remains dimly on. Breathing is one of the main reasons this matters so much. Because dolphins breathe air through lungs, and because breathing must remain active and coordinated, the body cannot simply forget it. A dolphin has to keep returning to the surface and taking breaths. This is very different from a fish, which can continue passing water over its gills while remaining fully submerged. It is also different from the way humans breathe during deep sleep without needing to rise into another environment. Dolphins must keep one connection to wakefulness because breathing depends on it. This unusual sleep pattern becomes especially important in early life. Mother and calf relationships are already very close, and rest is part of that closeness. Young calves are especially dependent and must stay in motion with their mothers. In the beginning, rest does not look like long separate sleep periods, the way it might in a land animal sheltered in a nest or den. Instead, it is tied to swimming, surfacing, and staying together. Early dolphin life is shaped by movement from the very start, and sleep has to fit within that pattern. All of this makes dolphin sleep feel both strange and perfectly logical. Strange because it challenges our ordinary idea of what sleep is supposed to be. Logical because once you remember that this is an air-breathing mammal living in open water, the need for partial awareness becomes easier to understand. A dolphin rests, but not by leaving the world entirely. It rests while keeping one part of itself ready. And that tells us something important about dolphin life as a whole. Even in their quietest moments, dolphins are shaped by alertness, rhythm, and the need to remain connected to the world around them. This half-awake way of resting hints at something deeper about dolphins. Their lives are shaped by constant awareness. When dolphins swim, they seem less like animals forcing themselves through water, and more like part of the water itself. That is one of the first things people notice when watching them. A dolphin does not usually look heavy, strained, or awkward. It does not appear to fight the sea. Instead, it rises, curves, and slips forward with a kind of smooth control that can feel almost weightless. Even when moving quickly, there is often a sense of ease. Of course, that ease is an illusion in one sense. A dolphin is still using muscle, energy, and precise coordination. But its body is so well adapted to water that the effort is hidden inside the movement. The main force comes from the tail. Unlike most fish, which move their tails side to side, dolphins drive themselves forward by moving their tail flukes up and down. This motion is powered by strong muscles along the back and body core. The spine bends vertically, and each stroke of the tail pushes against the water to create forward thrust. Over and over, this up and down motion carries the dolphin ahead. Because the flukes are broad and flexible, they can push large amounts of water very efficiently. The rest of the body stays streamlined, helping the dolphin convert that power into smooth travel rather than wasted motion. It is a very different image from paddling or splashing. A dolphin does not chop through the sea. It pulses through it. The spine plays a major role in this. Dolphins have a flexible body axis that allows the whole rear half of the body to contribute to movement. When the tail beats, the power is not isolated in one small part. The motion travels through the body in a coordinated wave, especially through the strong muscles near the tailstock, the narrow area just before the flukes. This gives dolphin movement its flowing quality. The animal does not seem to move one piece at a time. It moves as a whole. That whole body efficiency matters because water is dense. Moving through it takes far more effort than moving through air. Any body built for ocean life must reduce drag and avoid unnecessary resistance. Dolphins do this beautifully. Their smooth shape, tapered form, and lack of projecting limbs all help preserve forward momentum. Once moving, they can glide for short stretches with very little visible effort, almost as if the water is carrying them. This is part of why dolphins often look playful, even when they are simply traveling. A leap out of the water, for example, can seem like a joyful act, and sometimes it may be linked to play or social excitement. But leaping can also be practical. Moving through the air for a brief moment may reduce resistance compared with staying fully submerged at speed. In some cases, repeated low leaps, often called porpoising, can help an animal travel efficiently over longer distances. What looks like performance may sometimes be good movement economics. The same is true when dolphins ride the pressure waves near boats or surf along ocean swells. To human eyes, this can seem like pure fun, and sometimes it likely is stimulating or enjoyable to them. But it also reflects a deep sensitivity to water movement. Dolphins are very good at using the energy already present around them. A bow wave, a swell, or a breaking wave is not just scenery. It is a moving structure in the water that they can read and use. This ability makes their motion feel especially elegant. Dolphins do not only move through water, they respond to it. They adjust to currents, wave shapes, and one another in real time. That becomes even more striking when they travel in groups. A pod moving together can seem almost choreographed. Individuals rise and dive in loose rhythm. Bodies appear, vanish, and return again in patterns that feel coordinated without being rigid. No two dolphins move in exactly the same way at exactly the same moment. Yet the group often gives an impression of unity. This is one of the quiet beauties of dolphin motion. It is not just efficient on the level of the body, it is visually smooth on the level of the group. Even small changes in posture matter. A slight turn of the flippers, a change in body angle, or a different tail rhythm can shift direction, depth, or speed. The dolphin body is built not just for power, but for fine control. That is why their movement looks so clean. There is very little wasted correction. So when we watch dolphins, what we are really seeing is a body that has been shaped over millions of years to move with unusual precision through a demanding environment. The result is motion that looks natural, calm, and nearly effortless, even though it depends on remarkable anatomy and constant muscular control. But movement is only part of how dolphins navigate. Much of their world is not built from sight at all. For dolphins, sound is not just something they make. It is one of the main ways they understand the world. For humans, sight often feels like the leading sense. We trust what we can see. We use light, color, shape, and distance to make sense of where we are. But the underwater world does not always favor vision in the same way. Light fades quickly in water. Murk, depth, suspended particles, and shifting surface reflections can make even nearby objects difficult to see clearly. In that kind of environment, sound becomes especially important, and for dolphins, it becomes central. One reason is simple. Sound travels extremely well through water. In fact, it travels much faster through water than it does through air. That means information carried by sound can move quickly and effectively across an underwater environment. Where human speech weakens and scatters in open air, underwater sound can remain useful across long distances. For an animal living in the sea, this changes everything. It means the world is not only made of shapes and light, It is also made of echoes, pulses, calls, and vibrations. Dolphins rely heavily on sound in daily life. They produce whistles, clicks, and burst pulse sounds, each of which can serve different purposes. Some are used in social interaction, some help with coordination, some appear to be linked to navigation or close attention. Together, these sounds form a rich acoustic layer over dolphin life. Even when the surface above looks quiet, the underwater environment may be full of meaningful sound. This helps explain why dolphins often seem so comfortable in places where human senses would struggle. In cloudy coastal water, in the dim blue light below the surface, or at times of day when visibility is low, a dolphin is not as limited as we would be. That is because it is not relying on eyesight alone. It is listening, producing sound, and interpreting the information that comes back. In a sense, dolphins live inside an environment that is partly built from sound. This does not mean sight is useless to them. Dolphins can see, and vision still matters. But sound can reach where sight cannot. It can travel through darkness. It can move around suspended particles that would block a clear view. It can reveal activity beyond what the eye can easily track. In many underwater situations, sound is the more reliable guide. That gives the ocean a very different feeling when imagined from a dolphin's point of view. Instead of picturing the sea as a mostly empty visual space with occasional objects passing through it, it may be better to think of it as an active acoustic space. Bodies moving nearby create changes. Schools of fish disturb the water and reflect sound. Other dolphins call from different directions. The seafloor, the surface, and even the structure of the coast may shape how sound travels. The underwater world is not silent background. It is full of information. This is one reason dolphins can seem so finely tuned to their surroundings. They are not just watching the sea. They are immersed in a stream of acoustic detail that humans rarely experience directly. For us, the ocean surface can hide what lies below. For dolphins, sound can open some of that hidden space back up. It is also worth remembering that dolphins are social animals, and sound is well suited to social life in water. Vision depends on line of sight. If another dolphin is ahead, behind, below, or hidden by distance or water clarity, sight may fail. But sound can maintain connection across those gaps. A whistle or call can help pod members stay in contact, even when they are not clearly visible to one another. In that sense, sound helps hold the group together. The more you think about it, the more natural it becomes that dolphins would depend so deeply on this sense. They live in a moving environment where visibility changes, where bodies spread out and come back together, and where information needs to travel efficiently in all directions. Sound fits that life. It is not just decoration. It is structure. It shapes how dolphins communicate, how they stay aware of one another, and how they gather information from the wider world around them. It gives texture to places that might otherwise seem dark or empty. It turns water into something more than a physical medium. It turns it into a sensory one. And the most remarkable use of that sound may be echolocation, which lets dolphins gather detail from echoes. Echolocation is one of the strangest and most elegant tools in the animal world. To us, the idea can sound almost impossible at first. We are used to gathering detail from light. We look outward, and the world sends visual information back to our eyes. Dolphins can do something different. They can send out sound and then read the returning echoes. In this way, the world gives information back through pressure waves in water rather than through light alone. That does not mean dolphins have some magical extra vision. It means they have a different sensory system, one that works especially well in the environment they live in. The process begins with sound production. Dolphins make rapid, focused clicks, not random noises drifting outward in all directions, but highly organized signals that can be directed into the water ahead of them. These clicks are produced in the nasal region below the blowhole. From there, the sound is shaped and focused by a fatty structure in the forehead called the melon. The melon is one of the most important parts of dolphin echolocation. It helps direct the outgoing sound beam, almost like adjusting the path of a flashlight. Though sound and light behave very differently. By shaping how the clicks leave the head, the melon helps the dolphin send acoustic information into the space in front of it in a more controlled way. Once those clicks move through the water, they strike objects around the dolphin. A fish, a rock, the seafloor, another dolphin, or even changes in the underwater landscape can reflect the sound back. These returning echoes are then received by the dolphin, especially through specialized fat channels in the lower jaw, which help conduct sound toward the middle and inner ear. This detail is one of the most surprising parts of the system. Dolphins do not mainly receive returning echoes through the outer ear shape in the way humans think about hearing. Instead, the lower jaw plays an important role in carrying those sound vibrations inward. The whole front of the dolphin's body is, in a sense, part of the listening system. From there, the brain interprets the echoes, and those echoes can carry a remarkable amount of information. They can help reveal how far away something is, because the dolphin can detect how long it takes for the sound to return. They can also help reveal size, because larger or smaller objects reflect sound differently. Shape matters too. A long fish, a rounded object, or a rough, uneven surface will all affect echoes in their own way. Even texture and movement can shape what comes back. A fish swimming through a school may return a different pattern of acoustic detail than a still object resting on the bottom. So when people say that dolphins can see with sound, that phrase is helpful, but only up to a point. It captures the wonder of the system, but it can also be a little misleading. Echolocation is not just normal sight in another form. It is not a picture in the human sense. It is a way of sensing space, form, motion, and material through reflected sound. That is what makes it so fascinating. It works especially well in conditions where ordinary vision becomes unreliable. In dark water, muddy water, deep water, or cluttered underwater spaces. Light may not carry enough detail to be trusted on its own. Echolocation can still function there. A dolphin does not need a clear sunlit view in order to gather useful information. It can probe the water acoustically. This ability helps explain how dolphins can hunt so effectively, avoid obstacles, and move with confidence through places that would seem visually limited to us. It also adds another layer to the feeling that dolphins live in a sensory world very different from our own. The space ahead of them is not only something to be looked at, it is something to be tested, mapped, and explored with sound. At the same time, echolocation does not replace every other sense. A dolphin is not cut off from vision, touch, or ordinary hearing just because it has this ability. Instead, echolocation works alongside other forms of perception. It adds another stream of information to an already rich sensory life. That overlap matters because a dolphin's experience of the world is not built from a single tool. It is built from several senses working together, each one adding its own kind of detail to the water around it. Echolocation is powerful, but it does not replace every other sense. Dolphins still experience the world in several overlapping ways. A dolphin's world is richest when all of its senses work together. Echolocation may be one of the most striking parts of dolphin perception, but it is only one part. Dolphins do not move through the sea using a single extraordinary ability, while everything else fades into the background. Instead, they experience the world through several overlapping senses, each one offering a different kind of information. Sound may lead much of the way, but sight, touch, and other sensory abilities still help shape how a dolphin understands its surroundings. Hearing is perhaps the most important place to begin. For dolphins, hearing is not just useful, it is central. We have already seen how sound travels so well through water, and how dolphins use clicks, whistles, and echoes. But hearing matters even beyond echolocation. It allows dolphins to stay in contact with pod members, detect changes in the environment, and remain aware of activity around them. Their hearing is highly sensitive, especially in the ranges most useful for their own calls and acoustic signals. In many ways, dolphins live in a world where sound carries both social and spatial meaning at once. That means hearing is doing more than one job. It helps with connection, orientation, and attention all at the same time. Still, dolphins are not deaf to the visual world. They can see both underwater and above the surface, which is important for an animal that regularly crosses between those two environments. The conditions are very different in each case. Underwater light behaves differently, and the surface itself can distort what lies above. Yet dolphin eyes are adapted to function in both settings. A dolphin surfacing near a boat, another animal, or the shoreline is not entering a completely separate sensory world each time it rises. Its visual system helps it handle both the sea below and the air above. Vision likely becomes especially useful in clearer water, at shorter distances, or during close social interactions. A nearby calf, a pod member turning through the light, a fish school flashing ahead, or the outline of an approaching object may all be part of what sight can offer. Dolphins may not rely on vision in quite the same dominant way that humans do, but that does not make it unimportant. It is one layer among several. Touch adds another dimension. Because dolphins are social animals, touch matters not only in practical terms, but also in relationship. Physical contact can occur between mothers and calves, between companions in a pod, or during moments of social contact and coordinated movement. A calf swimming close beside its mother is not only hearing her and moving with her, it may also be staying oriented through body position and touch. In group life, contact can help reinforce closeness, timing, and familiarity. The skin itself is part of this sensory picture. Dolphin skin is smooth and active, always in contact with the surrounding water. Pressure, motion, and contact with other bodies all pass across it, We often think of skin as simply an outer covering. But for dolphins, it is also part of how the world is felt. Water flows over the body constantly, and subtle changes in that flow may matter more than humans immediately realize. Other senses appear to play a smaller role. Dolphins have a reduced sense of smell compared with many land mammals. This makes sense when you consider the environment they live in and the way their bodies have changed over time. Smell, so useful in air for many terrestrial animals, becomes less central in a fully aquatic life built around breath at the surface and sensory activity in water. Taste may also be more limited than people expect, at least compared with mammals that depend heavily on varied food textures and flavors on land. These are examples of sensory trade-offs. As some systems became less important, others became more refined. That is one of the quiet lessons of dolphin biology. No animal senses everything equally. Every species is shaped by the information its environment rewards most. For dolphins, the sea favored hearing, acoustic awareness, coordinated movement, and flexible sensory overlap. The result is not a single supersense, but a carefully balanced set of tools. So when you picture a dolphin moving through the water, it helps not to imagine one narrow channel of perception. Imagine instead a layered experience. Sound reaching outward and returning. Eyes adjusting between water and air. Skin feeling pressure, motion, and contact. The body reading the sea through more than one pathway at once. And once you begin to picture all of those senses working together, the next question becomes even more interesting. How do dolphins use all of this rich perception with one another? One of the most surprising discoveries about dolphins is that some of their calls seem to work like names. That idea can sound almost too human at first. We are used to thinking of names as something tied to language, memory, and identity in a very specific way. So when scientists say that certain dolphin calls may function in a name-like manner, it is important to understand both what is exciting about that finding and what should be said carefully. The basic idea begins with something called a signature whistle. In bottlenose dolphins, individuals can develop a distinctive whistle pattern that is strongly associated with that one animal. You can think of it as a kind of acoustic marker, a sound pattern that helps identify who is there. It is not just random noise. It is structured, stable enough to be recognized, and linked to a particular individual over time. In a world where visibility changes constantly and pod members may spread out beneath the surface, that kind of sound can be extremely useful. Instead of needing to see another dolphin clearly, one dolphin may be able to recognize who is nearby simply by hearing the whistle. That alone is already fascinating, because it means identity can be carried through water by sound. But the next part is what makes this topic especially memorable. Dolphins do not only produce their own signature whistles. In some cases, they also appear to copy the signature whistle of another dolphin. Researchers interpret this as a form of directed contact, almost like calling to a specific individual by using that individual's own identifying sound. This is where the comparison to names comes from. It does not mean dolphins have names in exactly the same way humans do, with spoken words tied into full grammar and conversation. But it does suggest something striking. A dolphin may have a recognizable acoustic identity, and other dolphins may use that identity in a socially meaningful way. In simple terms, one dolphin may be able to call out to another specific dolphin, not just make a general sound into the water. That gives dolphin communication a very personal feeling. It also fits well with the rest of what we know about dolphin life. Dolphins are social animals. They travel in groups, maintain bonds, separate and reunite, and depend on sound to stay connected in an environment where vision is limited. In that kind of world, a recognizable individual call makes a great deal of sense. It helps with contact. It helps with reunion. It helps keep track of who is who in a moving social setting. Imagine a pod spread loosely through the water. Some dolphins are near the surface. Others are slightly deeper. Light shifts. Distance opens and closes. In that kind of space, a familiar whistle can act like a thread, helping one individual remain connected to another, even when the water between them is wide or murky. This may be one reason signature whistles matter so much. They are not just sounds floating in the background. They may help structure dolphin social life by carrying identity through the sea. At the same time, this is a good place for caution. Scientists can say with confidence that signature whistles are individually distinctive and that dolphins can recognize them. There is also strong evidence that dolphins sometimes copy another individual's whistle in a way that appears socially directed. That is the solid ground. Where more care is needed is in how far we stretch the comparison. It is tempting to jump from name-like calls to dolphins have language just like humans, but that would go too far. Human language involves layers of meaning, grammar, abstraction, and endless recombination. Dolphin communication is rich, but it is not the same thing as human speech. The exciting part is not that dolphins are secretly talking exactly like us. The exciting part is that they have their own system of social sound, one that includes recognizable individual identity and flexible use of calls in ways that are rare and deeply interesting. In some ways, that is more fascinating than a simple human comparison. It reminds us that social intelligence does not have to look exactly like our own to be complex. Dolphins do not need to be underwater humans in order to surprise us. Their world is different, their bodies are different, and their lives unfold through water and sound. So when identity takes shape there, it takes shape in a form that suits that environment. A whistle, repeated and remembered. A pattern recognized across distance. A call that may belong not just to a species, but to an individual life. That changes how we picture a group of dolphins. Instead of seeing them as nearly identical bodies moving together in a loose mass, we begin to imagine individuals within the group, each with relationships, familiarity, and social history. One is not just any dolphin. It may be a known companion, a mother, a calf, an ally, or a familiar traveler returning through the same moving world. If dolphins can recognize individuals so clearly, it makes sense that their social lives would be far more layered than a simple group moving together. A dolphin is rarely just a lone body in the sea. It is usually part of a moving social world. That social world can be easy to miss at first. From the surface, a pod may look simple. A few curved backs rising and falling, a dorsal fin here, a splash there. Then quiet water again. But beneath that calm surface is often a more layered kind of group life. Dolphins do not simply gather by accident and drift together without pattern. In many species, they live among relationships, shifting associations, close bonds, and learned familiarity. In other words, a pod is not always just a crowd. It can be a social structure. The word pod is useful, but it can also sound more fixed than dolphin life really is. Some dolphin groups are stable for long periods, while others are looser and more fluid. Individuals may travel together for a time, separate, and then meet again later. Group membership can change depending on age, sex, habitat, feeding conditions, and local social habits. So when we picture dolphins in a pod, it helps to imagine something alive and flexible, rather than something rigidly organized. That flexibility makes sense in the sea. The ocean is constantly changing. Food moves, water conditions shift, distances open and close. In that kind of environment, a social system may work best when it allows both closeness and movement. Dolphins seem especially good at balancing those two things. They can maintain strong social relationships while still living in groups that expand, contract, and rearrange over time. One of the clearest and strongest bonds is the one between a mother and her calf. That relationship begins at birth and remains central through the calf's early development. The young dolphin stays close, learns to surface in rhythm, follows the mother's movement, and depends on her for milk, protection, and guidance. This bond is not just emotional in the loose way humans sometimes describe animals. It is practical, constant, and deeply important to survival. In a moving ocean world, closeness to the mother is one of the calf's first forms of order. Beyond that early bond, dolphins also form broader social relationships with others in the group. In some species and populations, researchers have observed long-term associations and even alliances, especially among males. These cooperative relationships can be complex, with individuals maintaining preferred companions and patterns of support over time. Not every dolphin society looks the same, but the general picture is clear enough. Dolphin social life can be more layered than a simple gathering of nearby animals. Juveniles add another important part to this picture. Young dolphins grow up in the presence of others, and that presence shapes learning. A juvenile does not only learn from direct experience, it also learns through proximity, timing, imitation, and repeated exposure to group life. It learns how to move with others, when to surface, how to respond to sounds, and how to fit into the pace of the pod. In this way, social structure is not only about who is together, it is also about how knowledge and habits pass through the group. That is one reason pod life matters so much. It does not only provide company, it creates a setting where behavior can be learned, reinforced, and shared. Group living also brings practical advantages. Dolphins that travel together may coordinate during hunting, remain more aware of their surroundings, and benefit from extra protection through shared vigilance and movement. A lone dolphin must manage the sea alone. A pod carries more senses, more experience, and more bodies moving in relation to one another. Even without turning dolphin society into something overly human, it is easy to see how group living could support survival. At the same time, dolphin social systems are not identical everywhere. Habitat matters. Species matters. A dolphin in coastal shallows may not live in quite the same social pattern as one farther offshore. Group size can vary, stability can vary, daily rhythms can vary. This is important because it reminds us there is no single perfect template for dolphin society. There are recurring patterns, but there is also diversity. The result is a kind of social life that feels both coordinated and fluid. Dolphins often move together, but not mechanically. They stay connected, but not always in fixed lines. Their world is social, yet still open and shifting like the water they live in. Once you begin to picture that, the pod starts to look less like a group of repeating shapes and more like a collection of individuals linked by familiarity, movement, and shared experience. And nowhere is the social side of dolphin life easier to picture than in the early life of a calf. A young dolphin enters the world already surrounded by motion, sound, and the need to rise for air. That is a very different beginning from the one most land mammals know. There is no nest, no dry ground, no quiet den. From the first moment of life, a dolphin calf is held by water. The body is buoyed, the world is moving, and survival depends almost immediately on joining the rhythm of the sea. Birth is not the beginning of stillness, it is the beginning of motion. Before that moment arrives, the calf spends many months developing inside the mother. In bottlenose dolphins, pregnancy usually lasts about a year, though exact timing can vary by species. During that time, the calf grows in a fully aquatic mammal body, preparing for a life that will begin not with crawling or standing, but with swimming and surfacing. When birth comes, it usually happens tail first, which helps reduce the risk of the calf inhaling water too early during delivery. Soon after birth, one of the most important moments in dolphin life takes place. The calf must reach the surface for its first breath. This first breath is not a small detail. It is the beginning of everything that makes dolphin life possible. The calf has developed inside the mother, but now it must enter the larger rhythm of lungs, surfacing, and air. The mother often helps guide the newborn upward. In some cases, other dolphins nearby may remain close as well, part of the surrounding social world into which the calf is born. When the calf breaks the surface and breathes for the first time, it begins a pattern that will continue for the rest of its life. From then on, closeness to the mother matters constantly. A young dolphin usually stays beside or slightly behind its mother as they swim. This position is not random. It helps the calf remain protected, draft more easily through the water, and stay in contact with the individual it depends on most. In the early weeks and months, the mother is not just a source of food. She is a guide to movement, timing, and belonging. The calf learns where to be by being near her. Nursing is another key part of this stage. Like all mammals, dolphins feed their young with milk. This too looks different in water than it does on land, but the basic mammal pattern remains. The calf drinks rich milk from the mother and grows quickly during this period of dependency. The bond is practical, physical, and constant. Warmth, food, protection, and learning all remain closely tied to the mother's presence. And there is a great deal to learn. A dolphin calf is not born with a full understanding of how to live in the sea. It must learn to surface in rhythm, to control its body, to move efficiently, to respond to sounds, and to stay with the group. Even the simple act of keeping pace is part of development. the calf is living in an environment where falling behind can matter. So early life is full of repetition. Rise, breathe, follow, adjust, listen, stay close. This long period of dependence is one of the most important features of dolphin life. Many animals become independent relatively quickly, but dolphins take longer. A calf may remain closely tied to its mother for years. That extended childhood allows more than physical growth. It creates time for observation, imitation, and gradual learning. A young dolphin does not only inherit a body shaped for water, it also grows into a social and behavioral world that has to be learned from within. This is part of what makes dolphin development so interesting. The calf is not simply waiting to become strong enough to survive on its own. It is being shaped by repeated exposure to the life around it. The mother's movements, the sounds of the pod, the timing of surfacing, the routes through local waters, and later even feeding habits all become part of the calf's education. In some populations, other dolphins may also play a role around calves, adding another layer to early life. But even when the mother remains the main focus, the calf is never developing in isolation. It is growing inside a social world. That matters because dolphin childhood is not just about survival in the narrow sense. It is about joining a pattern of life already in motion. The calf learns how to be a dolphin by living alongside other dolphins, especially the mother, from the very beginning. So when we picture a young dolphin, it helps not to imagine a helpless infant waiting passively to grow. Instead, picture a learner in water. Small, dependent, and new, but already moving through a rich world of breath, sound, contact, and example. That long childhood helps explain how dolphins can learn not just survival, but specific local ways of living. Dolphins do not all hunt in the same way, but many hunt with timing that feels almost choreographed. This is one of the most striking things about them. A single dolphin can certainly catch prey on its own, but in many cases, dolphins hunt as part of a coordinated group. They adjust to one another, shift position, react quickly, and seem to read the movement of both prey and pod members at once. From a distance, it can look almost effortless. A few bodies curve through the water. A school of fish tightens, and suddenly the whole shape of the hunt begins to change. Much of dolphin hunting depends on the kinds of prey available in a given place. Many dolphins feed on fish. Others also eat squid, and some take a wider range of prey depending on the habitat they live in. Coastal waters, open ocean zones, estuaries, and deeper offshore regions can all encourage different feeding styles. So while the word hunting may sound like one fixed behavior, in dolphins it is often flexible and shaped by local conditions. Still, there are broad patterns that appear again and again. One of the most common is cooperative feeding. Instead of each dolphin scattering after whatever it can catch, individuals may work in ways that help concentrate prey into a tighter, more manageable space. This can make a large, fast-moving school of fish easier to control. A single fish darting in open water can be difficult to catch. But when many fish are pressured together, their own movements begin to work against them. The school tightens, turns, and loses some of its freedom. At that point, dolphins can take advantage of the confusion. This is where timing becomes so important. Dolphins may circle a school, push it upward, or herd it into a denser mass. Some take positions at the edges, others cut through the group. In certain situations, individuals may seem to alternate roles, with one pushing and another feeding. The exact pattern can vary, but the basic principle remains the same. By responding to one another as well as to the prey, dolphins can hunt more effectively than they might alone. That does not mean every dolphin hunt is perfectly organized or identical from one moment to the next. It is not a rigid dance with fixed steps. It is more flexible than that, but flexibility does not make it random. It is often shaped by repeated experience, awareness of others, and a strong ability to react quickly in a shared space. You can imagine a school of fish flashing beneath the surface, each fish trying to stay close to the others. Around them, dolphins arc inward and outward, tightening the space. The water itself becomes part of the hunt. Depth, shoreline shape, current, light, and the behavior of the prey all matter. A dolphin is not hunting in empty space. It is hunting in a physical environment that can help or hinder every movement. That is why habitat matters so much. Dolphins living in one kind of place may develop hunting styles that suit that environment, while dolphins somewhere else may rely on a very different pattern. In shallow coastal waters, prey can sometimes be pressed toward the surface or shore. In deeper open water, the hunt may involve more vertical movement or longer chases. In places where squid are important, dolphins may dive and pursue prey differently than they would in areas dominated by schooling fish. So although coordination is a major theme, the exact shape of the hunt is always being shaped by the world around it. There is also a balance here between instinct and learning. Dolphins are clearly built to hunt. Their bodies, senses, speed, and attention all support that. But effective hunting, especially in a group, also depends on practice. A young dolphin has to learn more than what prey looks like. It must also learn timing, distance, movement, and how to function alongside others. In that sense, hunting is not just a physical act. It is also a social one. This is one reason dolphin feeding can feel so fascinating to watch. It combines speed and control, individual skill and group awareness. The dolphins are not simply chasing food in a scattered rush. Very often, they are shaping the conditions of the hunt together. And yet, even these cooperative methods are only part of the story. Some hunting strategies appear across many dolphin groups, but others are so specific, so local, and so unusual that they seem to belong not just to the species, but to particular places and traditions. Not every dolphin grows up doing the same things in the same way. That is one of the most interesting things researchers have found when studying dolphins in different parts of the world. At first, it might seem reasonable to assume that all dolphins of the same species would behave more or less alike. If they share the same body plan, the same broad instincts, and the same need to hunt, then why would their lives differ very much from place to place? But in some cases, they do. And those differences are not always explained by anatomy alone. Sometimes they appear to be passed from one dolphin to another through learning. One of the best-known examples comes from certain bottlenose dolphins in Shark Bay, Western Australia. There, some dolphins have been observed carrying marine sponges on their rostrums or beaks while searching for food along the seafloor. The sponge seems to act as a kind of protective covering, helping the dolphin probe rough or abrasive bottom areas without injuring itself. It is a simple behavior in one sense, but also a remarkable one. The dolphin is not just using its body as it was born. It is using an object from the environment in a purposeful way. That is why this behavior is often described as tool use. What makes it even more interesting is that not every dolphin in the area does it. The behavior appears in certain individuals and seems to be passed along socially, especially from mother to calf. A young dolphin growing up close to a mother that uses a sponge may learn to do the same. In this way, a feeding method becomes more than a personal habit. It becomes a local tradition. Another example is a behavior sometimes called shelling. In this case, dolphins have been seen trapping fish inside large empty shells and then lifting the shells toward the surface so the trapped prey slides into the mouth. Again, this is not a universal dolphin behavior. It appears in certain places and among certain dolphins. It reflects not only opportunity, but also learning and repeated practice. These behaviors matter because they show that dolphin life is shaped by more than instinct alone. Instinct is certainly important. Dolphins are born with bodies and senses suited for hunting, movement, and social life. But instinct does not explain everything. In some cases, the details of how a dolphin finds food seem to depend on where it grows up and what it learns from the dolphins around it. That means place matters, family lines matter, and experience matters. This is where the idea of culture enters the discussion. Scientists use that word carefully and with good reason. In everyday speech, culture can mean many things, including art, belief, language, and tradition in the human sense. When researchers use the word in animal behavior, they usually mean something more specific. Behaviors shared within a group and passed along through social learning rather than through genes alone. By that definition, some dolphin behaviors do seem culture-like, but it is still wise to be careful. Saying dolphins have culture does not mean dolphin societies work like human societies in every way. It does not mean they have the same kind of symbolic traditions, stories, or institutions that humans do. The point is narrower and more grounded than that. It means some ways of living can spread socially within dolphin groups and persist over time in particular places. That is already extraordinary enough. It means a young dolphin may inherit not just a body, but a way of using that body. It may grow into a local style of hunting shaped by what older dolphins do. One dolphin population may solve a feeding problem one way, while another nearby population handles it differently. Over time, those differences can become part of what makes each group distinct. This gives dolphin life a deeper texture. A dolphin is not only an individual animal responding mechanically to the environment. It may also be part of a local pattern of knowledge, shaped by mothers, companions, habitat, and repeated example. The sea, in other words, is not just a place where dolphins survive. It is also a place where certain habits can endure. And once you begin to see that, dolphin life feels even richer than before. It is not only about movement, sound, and feeding. It is also about learning how to belong to a particular way of living in a particular part of the world. And learning does not only show up in feeding. It also appears in something lighter, looser, and more playful. Dolphins are famous for play, but play may be more than simple fun. This is one of the reasons dolphins have captured human attention for so long. When people see dolphins surfing waves, chasing one another, or tossing objects through the water, the behavior can look joyful in a way that feels immediately recognizable. It is easy to watch and think that the meaning is obvious. They must be playing because they enjoy it. That may be true in part. But in animal life, play can also do important work. It can help young animals practice movement, timing, coordination, and social interaction. It can build familiarity between individuals. It can test bodies, sharpen responses, and create space for learning in a form that does not look serious from the outside. So when dolphins play, what we may be seeing is not only pleasure, but also preparation. One of the clearest examples is wave riding. Dolphins are well known for surfing along ocean swells or traveling in the pressure waves created by boats. To human eyes, this can look almost like recreation, and it may well be stimulating or enjoyable to them. But it also reflects how sensitive dolphins are to movement in the water. A wave is not just a background condition. It is a moving structure that can be read and used. Riding it takes timing, body control, and an understanding of how water is already moving around the body. That means wave riding may be playful and skill building at the same time. The same is true of chasing behavior. Young dolphins, and sometimes older ones as well, may pursue one another through the water, turn sharply, change speed, and circle back again. From a distance, it may look light-hearted, but it also asks a lot from the body. It requires fast response, fine control, and awareness of another moving animal nearby. Those are useful abilities far beyond play itself. A dolphin that can match another dolphin's movement closely is also practicing the kind of coordination that matters in group life more generally. Then there is object play. Dolphins have been seen nudging seaweed, carrying floating material, pushing items through the water, and interacting with objects in ways that do not appear directly tied to feeding. Sometimes these behaviors seem exploratory, as though the dolphin is testing what an object does when moved, released, or struck. At other times, the same object may pass back and forth between individuals, making the interaction social as well as physical. This gives play a curious quality. It is not always about a clear goal. Sometimes it seems to be about engagement itself. Bubble play offers another memorable example. Dolphins can produce streams or rings of bubbles and then interact with them underwater. To us, this may seem almost whimsical, and in a way it is. But even here, the behavior shows control, attention, and interest in cause and effect. The dolphin does something, watches what happens, and then responds. That pattern of action and feedback is part of how many animals learn about their environment. Social play among juveniles may be especially important. Young dolphins are still growing into pod life, body control, and the demands of movement in water. Play gives them a flexible space in which to practice those things. It can help them learn distance, speed, timing, and social signals without the full pressure of a hunt or other serious situation. In this sense, play becomes part of development. It is practice hidden inside pleasure. At the same time, play may also help strengthen social bonds. Repeated positive interaction can build familiarity and trust, especially in animals that live in groups. A dolphin that regularly chases, turns, and interacts with another is not just using muscle. It is also participating in a relationship. The body and the social world are being shaped together. Of course, scientists have to be careful here too. We should not assume that every playful-looking behavior has one simple explanation. Some actions may be exploratory, some may be social, some may be physical practice, some may simply reflect stimulation and energy. Often, more than one of those things may be true at once. Animal behavior does not always fit into one neat category. Still, the broader pattern is clear enough to be meaningful. Play appears often in dolphins, and it appears in ways that suggest flexibility, curiosity, and a willingness to engage with the world beyond immediate survival. That alone tells us something important. Dolphin life is not made only of feeding, traveling, and breathing. It also includes moments of looseness, experimentation, and interaction that seem to go beyond strict necessity. And once you notice that, it becomes harder to picture dolphins as one simple, uniform kind of animal. The more we look at dolphin behavior, the harder it becomes to think of a dolphin as one single type of animal. The word dolphin sounds singular, but the family it points to is surprisingly broad. Many people grow up with one clear image in mind when they hear the word. They picture a bottlenose dolphin rising through blue water, grey-backed, smooth-skinned, and curved into that familiar shape that seems almost to smile. That image is so common that it can make dolphins feel like one simple, easily recognized animal. But the deeper you look, the more that image begins to widen. There is no single dolphin form. Instead, there are many kinds of dolphins living in different waters, with different body sizes, color patterns, feeding habits, and ways of moving through the world. Some are strongly tied to coasts. Some spend much of their lives offshore. Some are known for high leaps. Others are quieter and less often seen. Some look immediately familiar to us. Others challenge what we thought a dolphin was supposed to look like. The bottlenose dolphin remains the best-known example, and for good reason. It is the dolphin many people see in documentaries, aquariums, and coastal wildlife tours. Bottlenose dolphins have a sturdy body, a clear beak, and a shape that many viewers immediately recognize. They are found in a wide range of habitats and have been studied more closely than many other species, which is one reason they dominate the public picture of dolphin life. But they are only one branch of a much larger group. Common dolphins, for example, often look slimmer and more sharply patterned than bottlenose dolphins. They are known for their striking side markings and for their fast, graceful movement. In the right light, the body patterning can make them look almost painted, with pale and darker tones meeting in elegant lines. They often travel in large groups and can create the impression of a very different kind of dolphin society from the smaller, more familiar coastal scenes people often imagine. Then there are spinner dolphins, which are especially well known for their leaping behavior. When they launch themselves from the water and twist through the air, they create one of the most visually memorable sights in marine life. Their name comes from this spinning motion. To us, it can seem almost theatrical, but it is simply one of the ways their behavior appears in the open sea. Spinner dolphins remind us that even among dolphins, body style and movement can vary in ways that make one species feel quite different from another. Dusky dolphins offer another contrast. They are often associated with cool waters and are known for energetic surface behavior and agility. Their coloring differs from the simpler grey pattern many people associate with bottlenose dolphins, and their lives unfold in different marine settings. Once again, the basic dolphin body plan is there, but the details shift. And then there is the orca. Many people think of the orca only as a killer whale, which is understandable, since the name is so well established. But biologically, the orca is the largest member of the dolphin family. That fact alone is enough to stretch the ordinary idea of what a dolphin is. The same family that includes sleek, medium-sized coastal dolphins also includes the bold black and white body of the orca, one of the most powerful and recognizable marine mammals on Earth. This does not mean every dolphin is orca-like, of course. It means the family is broader than people often realize. If we widen the picture even further, river dolphins can serve as a useful contrast, even though they belong to different branches than the typical oceanic dolphins people first imagine. River dolphins show what happens when dolphin-like lives unfold in murky freshwater systems rather than open marine environments. Their bodies, faces, and sensory emphasis can feel different, shaped by rivers instead of coasts or offshore waters. Including them, even briefly, helps show that dolphin diversity is not only about ocean color patterns or body size. It is also about habitat and the very different demands different waters can create. All of this matters because it gently corrects a very common misconception. When people say dolphin, they often think they are naming one familiar type of animal. But in reality, they are pointing to a wide and varied family. Some dolphins are small and delicate looking. Some are larger and more robust. Some live in warm tropical waters. Others move through cooler seas. Some travel in very large groups. Others are encountered in smaller numbers. Some are famous for leaps, others for speed, others for intelligence research, and others for lives most people rarely get to see at all. The more species you consider, the less dolphins feel like one repeated form, and the more they begin to feel like a whole world of related possibilities. A shared body plan, yes. A shared mammal history, yes. But also many different answers to the same broad challenge of life in water. And once we widen from species to geography, dolphins begin to feel less like one familiar animal and more like a whole branch of ocean life spread across the planet. Dolphins live in many different waters, from coasts and estuaries to the open ocean. That is one of the reasons the word dolphin can hide so much variety. It does not describe one single lifestyle repeated everywhere. A dolphin living near a coastline may face a very different world from one spending its life far offshore. The water may be shallower or deeper, clearer or murkier, calmer or more exposed. Food may gather in different ways. Human activity may be close at hand or far away. Even the shape of daily movement can change depending on the habitat. So to understand dolphins more fully, it helps to stop picturing one ideal setting and instead imagine many different kinds of water. Some dolphins are strongly associated with coastal living. These are the dolphins people are often most likely to encounter from shore, from small boats or during near-coast wildlife trips. Coastal waters can offer relatively rich feeding grounds, varied bottom features, and a mix of open space and shelter. Bays, inlets, and nearshore zones often bring together fish, changing tides, and underwater structure, all of which can shape dolphin behavior. In these places, dolphins may move through areas where the seafloor matters more. Shorelines affect movement, and human presence is hard to avoid. Estuaries and protected bays create another kind of habitat. These are places where fresh water and salt water may mix, where currents can be more complex, and where the environment may shift with tides, river flow, and seasonal change. For dolphins living in such areas, life can be shaped by channels, mudflats, shallows, and concentrated prey. These habitats may also encourage more localized movement patterns, where dolphins repeatedly use familiar areas rather than ranging across huge open spaces. Farther from shore, offshore dolphins live in a different setting altogether. The open ocean has fewer obvious boundaries. There are no nearby beaches, harbor walls, or shallow estuary channels to define movement. Instead, life may unfold across broad stretches of water where prey can be patchier, distances larger, and group travel more expansive. Offshore dolphins may cover wide areas, sometimes in large groups, responding to currents, temperature zones, and the shifting distribution of fish or squid. The sea here can feel more open, but also more demanding. Food must still be found, companions must still be tracked, and the surface must still be reached for air. Temperature matters too. Dolphins live in both warm and cool waters, though different species are better suited to different conditions. Warm tropical seas may support one set of species and behaviors, while cooler temperate waters support another. Body size, prey type, movement patterns, and even social groupings can all be shaped by these conditions. Water temperature affects ecosystems broadly, and dolphins are part of those broader patterns. Where prey gathers, dolphins often follow. Some dolphin species also show regional movements or migrations. These movements are not always as famous as the long migrations of some large whales, but they still matter. Dolphins may shift range with seasons, prey availability, breeding needs, or local water conditions. In some places, they may remain fairly resident, using the same general area for long periods. In others, they may move more widely. This reminds us again that dolphin life is not one fixed pattern. It changes with species and place. River systems, though different from the marine settings most people first imagine, offer a useful comparison. Dolphins, or dolphin-like cetaceans, living in freshwater environments face murkier water, narrower spaces, and very different prey and movement challenges. Even if river dolphins are not the center of this video, thinking about them briefly helps show how strongly habitat can shape body use, sensory emphasis, and daily life. And that is really the key idea here. Habitat changes behavior. It changes what prey is available. It changes how far dolphins may need to travel. It changes how useful certain hunting methods become. It changes risk, including exposure to boats, nets, pollution, and shoreline development. It may even influence the social patterns of a group, depending on how concentrated food is and how predictable the environment feels. So when we picture dolphins, it helps not to picture one universal blue ocean scene repeated around the world. Instead, picture a wide range of waters: sheltered bays, tidal estuaries, shallow coasts, cool currents, warm offshore zones, and broad open seas. In each place, dolphin life takes on slightly different details. The same family, the same need for air, the same smooth movement through water. But different homes, different pressures, and different rhythms. Where dolphins live shapes what they eat, how they travel, and what role they play in the wider life of the sea. A dolphin is not just an isolated animal. It is part of a much larger living system. It can be tempting to think of dolphins mainly as individual creatures or as members of a pod, moving through their own private world of breath, sound, and social life. But no dolphin exists on its own. Every dolphin is connected to the wider ocean around it. It depends on prey, competes within food webs, responds to changes in habitat, and reflects the health of the waters it lives in. In that sense, dolphins are not separate from the sea. They are woven into it. One of the clearest ways to understand this is through food webs. Dolphins are predators. They feed on fish, squid, and other prey depending on the species and habitat. That means they sit above many smaller animals in the marine system. They are not at the absolute top in every environment, but they are an important middle to upper part of the food web. Their lives depend on the animals below them, and in turn, their presence affects the balance of those prey populations. This relationship is never static. If fish numbers shift, dolphins may need to change where they travel, what they target, or how much energy they spend searching for food. If squid become more or less available, the pressure can move through the system and affect dolphin behavior as well. So when we see a dolphin hunting successfully, we are also seeing the result of many deeper ocean conditions already in place. Prey must be present. Habitat must support that prey. Currents, temperature, and seasonal patterns must all line up in certain ways. That is what makes dolphins such good reminders that no marine animal lives alone. They are linked to schools of fish, to plankton lower in the food chain, to underwater geography, and to broad environmental conditions that shape the whole ecosystem. A dolphin may seem graceful and self-contained from the surface, but beneath that appearance is constant dependence on a larger chain of life. Predators above dolphins matter too. In some regions and situations, dolphins may face danger from large sharks. Orcas may also prey on certain smaller dolphin species. These relationships are part of the natural balance of the sea, even if they are not what defines dolphin life most of the time. The point is not that dolphins are constantly under threat, but that they are part of a system where prey and predator roles overlap in complicated ways. A dolphin may hunt smaller animals, while also needing awareness of larger hunters in some waters. This layered position makes dolphins especially interesting from an ecological point of view. They are active participants in the marine system, not just passive residents of it. Because they depend on healthy prey populations and relatively stable habitat conditions, dolphin health can also tell us something about the state of the ocean more broadly. Marine scientists sometimes treat dolphins and marine mammals more generally as indicators of ecosystem stress. If dolphins are struggling in a region, that can point to deeper problems underneath the surface. Prey may be declining. Toxins may be accumulating. Noise, disturbance, or habitat damage may be affecting the wider system. In that way, dolphins can act almost like visible signals from a largely hidden world. Humans cannot easily observe every layer of marine life all at once. Much of the ocean remains out of sight, and many changes happen gradually. But dolphins are easier to notice than plankton shifts or underwater chemical changes. When dolphins change their range, show signs of poor health, or decline in certain places, they can reveal that something larger is happening in the ecosystem around them. This does not mean dolphins are perfect measures of ocean health, or that every dolphin pattern has one simple cause. Nature is more complicated than that, but it does mean that dolphins are often deeply tied to the conditions of the sea they move through. Their well-being reflects not just their own biology, but the stability of the world supporting them. That makes them ecologically meaningful in a quiet way. A dolphin surfacing in calm water may look self-possessed and complete, but that moment rests on many hidden supports. Living prey below, working habitats around it, and ocean conditions stable enough to sustain a chain of life. Remove too many of those supports, and dolphin life begins to change as well. So when we think about dolphins, it helps to see them not only as intelligent marine mammals, but also as part of the wider fabric of the ocean. They connect movement, hunting, social life, and ecosystem health into one living thread. And because dolphins are so woven into ocean life, the pressures humans place on the sea are often written onto dolphin lives as well. Modern oceans are not quiet, empty places, and dolphins must live within the changes humans have created. For most of dolphin history, the sea was shaped by currents, coastlines, prey, weather, and other living creatures. Today, all of those things still matter, but they now exist alongside something else. Human pressure. Boats cross coastal waters. Fishing gear stretches through feeding grounds. Chemicals move from land to sea. Noise travels through the water. Plastic drifts, breaks apart, and settles into places where marine life already lives. Dolphins do not encounter humanity only at the shoreline. In many parts of the world, they now encounter its effects almost everywhere. One of the most serious dangers is bycatch. Bycatch happens when dolphins become trapped in fishing gear that was not meant for them. Nets, lines, and other equipment placed in the water for fish or other species can accidentally catch dolphins as well. Because dolphins must surface to breathe, entanglement can be especially dangerous. Even when animals escape, injuries and stress can still matter. In this way, a feeding ground that once supported dolphin life can become a place of hidden risk. Noise pollution is another major change, though it is less visible. To humans looking across the surface, the sea may appear calm. But underwater, sound travels far, and many human activities add more and more of it to the environment. Ships, industrial work, military sonar, and other machinery can create a louder ocean than the one dolphins evolved in. For animals that rely so heavily on sound for contact, awareness, and echolocation, that matters deeply. Noise can interfere with communication, make orientation harder, and add stress to daily life. A world built partly from sound becomes more difficult to read when too many unrelated sounds fill it. Chemical contamination creates a quieter problem, but no less serious one. pollutants entering marine systems can build up through food webs over time. Since dolphins are long-lived predators in many habitats, they can accumulate harmful substances in their bodies. This makes them especially vulnerable to pollution that may begin far away from them, on land or elsewhere in the marine system, and then slowly move upward through prey and habitat. Plastic adds another layer. Some plastic is large and obvious, but much of it becomes broken, scattered, or mixed into the wider marine environment. Dolphins may not always be the species most visibly affected by plastic compared with seabirds or turtles, but habitat degradation and marine debris still shape the world they live in. And plastic is often a sign of a broader truth. The places dolphins inhabit are increasingly filled with human leftovers. Ship traffic also matters, especially in busy coastal waters. More boats mean more noise, more disturbance, and in some areas more direct risk of collision. A dolphin surfacing in a crowded marine corridor is no longer moving only through current and tide. It is also moving through engines, propellers, and fast-changing human pathways. Then there is climate change and warming oceans. As waters warm, prey distributions can shift. Some species move into new areas, while others decline or become less predictable. Ocean conditions that once supported a familiar feeding pattern may begin to change. For dolphins, that can mean altered range, new competition, more effort spent finding food, or changes in the timing of seasonal movement. Climate change does not affect dolphins in one simple way. It changes the wider system they depend on. Captivity and welfare debates belong in this human story too. Dolphins have long fascinated people, and that fascination has led to research, display, tourism, and entertainment. Some argue that close human contact can support education and appreciation. Others point to the difficulty of recreating the scale, complexity, soundscape, and social freedom of wild dolphin life in captivity. Whatever position one takes, the debate itself reveals something important. Humans do not only affect dolphins by accident. We also shape their lives through the ways we choose to observe, contain, admire, and interact with them. That tension appears in tourism as well. Many people genuinely love dolphins and want to see them responsibly. But admiration can still become disturbance when too many boats crowd a pod, when swimmers approach too closely, or when the desire for a special encounter outweighs the animal's need for space. That is the deeper pattern running through this whole section. Humans are drawn to dolphins, but being drawn to them is not the same as living well beside them. Even with all of that, dolphins remain one of the clearest reminders that another kind of mammal life is moving beside us on this planet. By the end of the journey, dolphins can seem both more familiar and more mysterious than they did at the beginning. That may be the quiet effect they leave behind. The more we learn about dolphins, the less they feel like a simple symbol, and the more they feel like a real kind of life, shaped by its own rules. They are not just friendly faces rising beside boats. They are not just clever animals or graceful swimmers. They are mammals living in water, breathing air, sensing through sound, and moving through a world that is both recognizable to us and deeply unlike our own. That is what gives them such a lasting presence in the imagination. At the center of dolphin life is one image that keeps returning. A body made for the sea, rising for air. That single rhythm says so much. It reminds us that dolphins belong fully to the ocean, yet never entirely leave the world above it behind. They travel through salt water with smooth skin, flukes, and fins, but every breath still ties them to the sky. They are creatures of depth and surface at once. The sea carries them, but the air sustains them. In that way, dolphins feel like living bridges between two environments. The same kind of bridge appears in the way they sense the world. Humans trust light so deeply that it is hard to imagine perception organized any other way. Dolphins remind us that another path is possible. For them, sound is not a secondary detail. It is one of the main ways the world takes shape. Whistles carry contact. Clicks gather information. Echoes reveal distance, form, and motion. The ocean around a dolphin is not only something to look at, it is something to listen through. That changes how we picture their lives. Instead of imagining dolphins moving through a silent blue emptiness, we begin to imagine them inside an active field of sound. The sea becomes textured by echoes, social calls, shifting water, and the presence of others. A pod is not just a visual grouping of bodies. It is also an acoustic world of familiarity and contact. A mother and calf are not only near each other in space, they are linked through movement, sound, and repeated rhythm. Even the hunt becomes more than speed and chase. It becomes a coordination of bodies that are listening as well as moving. That is part of what makes dolphins feel so socially alive. They do not seem solitary or sealed off from one another. They seem connected. Pods shift and reform. Calves stay close to mothers. Individuals appear to recognize one another in ways that are more specific than people once assumed. Some groups pass down local behaviors. Some dolphins play, some coordinate, some copy whistles, some use tools. All of this gives their lives a layered quality. They are not just surviving in the sea. They are inhabiting it together. And yet, for all of that closeness, dolphins do not become less mysterious. In some ways, they become more so. The more familiar they seem, the easier it is to project ourselves onto them. We see a smile where there is only anatomy. We see friendliness where there may be curiosity, efficiency, or simple presence. We see intelligence and want to translate it into something fully human. But dolphins do not need to become like us in order to matter. In fact, they become more interesting when we let them stay partly beyond us. They are close enough to stir recognition, but different enough to remind us that mammal life has taken forms we do not live ourselves. That may be one of the deepest things dolphins show us. Evolution did not produce one single path for warm-blooded, social, learning animals. It produced many. One branch stayed on land and built lives around hands, feet, tools, fire, and speech in air. Another branch returned to the water and built lives around flukes, breath, echo, and motion in the sea. Dolphins are part of that second path. They show us what mammal life can become when it is shaped by currents instead of roads, by surfacing instead of walking, by sound instead of sight alone. There is something calming in that thought. Beneath the surface, there is a world of lungs and whistles, of mothers and calves, of gliding bodies and half-sleeping minds. There is a world where identity may travel by sound, where the ocean is read through echoes, and where a familiar mammal rhythm continues in a place that can seem almost alien to us. And still, the dolphin rises, a back breaking the surface, a breath, a small burst of air, then the body slipping down again, leaving only widening rings on the water. And beneath those fading ripples, an entire social and sensory world continues moving on.